All right, welcome to Shift. Thanks for coming. It's a little bit of a different shift today. We have Melanie DeLuca with us, and we have heard from Melanie before about some of her work with Opportunity International, and we also heard about her faith story, which is Melanie likes to go to places, well, maybe not likes, but she does. She goes to faraway places to sort of reach into her faith. And her most recent visit, actually, I don't even think it's her most recent visit because she travels so much, but she went to Colombia with Opportunity International. And she's here to talk about a holistic listening program that we think could have some opportunities for us as well. So welcome, Melanie.
Thank you very much. Whoop, now I've got a mic. Well, what I'd love to share with you is this new approach and this new curriculum that I learned about when I was in Colombia. So a few of you may have heard me talk about Colombia before. Raise your hand, so a couple of you are veterans to that. So again, I want to dive deeper into the needs of the poor, and it is not Colombia specific. It really, really can be applied for work across the world, and I think in our own backyard. So that's the other important piece, that I want you to find those strains as I talk today. We had a really good introductory video that's not loading. So I'm going to kind of talk you through what the program is about, and I will direct you where you can see this video online because it's excellent. So what happened is, you all probably know Opportunity International deals with the very poor in places around the world, countries on multiple continents. And in their work to continually say, are we doing the right things? Are the services we do in microfinance and in water and in other services, is it what people need? So they have a research and development arm to their organization, and they said, I think we need to go back and do some research and really find out. And what they said is, in order to do research that's real data driven, like how many people don't have homes and all of these things that have quantifiable numbers, that's pretty easy to do. Who's homeless? How many people don't have an education? You can collect that data really easily. But what's not easy to collect is that qualitative data. What is going on in the lives of people? And especially they were trying to assess their clients who are living in poverty, that are obstacles in their life are keeping them where they're at. And they said, it's not just money. It's not just, here we'll throw some money and everything will be perfect. And so when you heard, I'm glad Pastor Ann is here, when you heard that concept of shalom, shalom is talked about in the Bible about being at peace in our relationships. And it's our relationship not only with God, but with ourselves, with others, including our family, our community, and even our environment, which could be our work and where we live and our natural world. And so being at peace means we thrive. And that's for all of us, not just people in poverty. So when you think about the concept of shalom, it's what God wants for all of us. But when you hear all the passages in the Bible that talk about the needs of the poor and people in poverty, in one of the things we were taught, there are over 70 passages talking specifically about addressing the needs of those who are poor. And really it is I believe, our commission as Christians to not only be striving for shalom in our own lives, but that this is something we should want for all people, regardless of their circumstances. So,
what I like about that is that we talked today about living in the light. We just had a women's retreat that talked about well-being and how to get in touch. And I think this, especially this time of year, it can be a tough time, right? It's winter. Some of us are inside, and it's easy to get down and into your own circumstances. So I really love what the shalom is because it's so applicable to all of us. I mean, if we can't be in touch with ourselves and in a shalom place, how can we help other people?
Right. And for an organization that works to meet the needs of the poor, to truly listen and say, we don't necessarily know best. We have to listen to our clients. And I love that concept that I think we should apply to all of our ministry, whether it's here at Trinity or it's all of the places we serve, both in our own communities and elsewhere. Do we go with a humble heart? Do we go to listen? Do we go to find out what people really need? So I want to tell you a little bit about this research because I think it was fascinating. So what they did is they trained people who would be trusted people to go in and set up a time with someone and say, can I ask you to tell me some stories about your life in these different areas? So if I went in and said to Jerry, how many times do you go to church? Or, real specific questions. I almost lead the conversation where she thinks, oh, she wants me to say I go to church more. Or,
2 times, right.
So sometimes when you ask those kind of leading questions, it's really, you're almost leading the answer. But instead, Jerry, tell me a story about you as a person and something in this last year that's really important to you. And it could be it's something good, it could be something challenging, but I want you to tell me a story. So when we ask questions, I'm not going to make her tell me a story now, but imagine if we're asking questions in that way. And so the researchers in Colombia, what they did is they trained pastors to do this work. Because there are a lot of pastors out in the poor neighborhoods with little tiny congregations in little one-room churches. And so they trained about 60 pastors to do this work. And they took someone with them and they went out and they interviewed. And we got to hear from the pastors about the process of doing the assessment. What was fascinating is they said, we never listen that deeply. We're talking all the time. Excuse me, Pastor Ann. We don't sit back and listen. And so this framework gave them the chance to really listen, not only to their parishioners, but to people in the community. And it gave them so many insights into what they could do with their ministry that they hadn't even thought about before. And so this process, you literally ask the questions, and you write down in a very specific way the responses, and then they score. They have what's called a rubric for people in education, where if you're a 5 here, they have a description of what that means. And if you're a -5, they have a description of what that means. So the reviewers, the listeners, go back and score where that person was kind of on this grid. And then they interpret what they're hearing. And then the goal is, based on what you heard, how can we help this client more? How can we help this community more? And they found that if they did 20 to 25 interviews in a community, they had a pulse on that community. They didn't need to do 100, 20 to 25, and they were getting commonalities of what the needs of that community were and of those people. And so that process of deep listening, I think, is something for us to think about. Do we deeply listen either to the needs of the people in our congregation or when we go out in the community and we're wanting to do work? I think about, because I love to go to faraway places, but I also love to serve near. And I've been working with our partner with Salem Lutheran in North Minneapolis, and they had a whole exercise of listening. So they were talking to people. It was through the synod, and it wasn't necessarily this process or these questions, but the fact that they were sitting back to listen, what should our church be like in this neighborhood in North Minneapolis? So my synergy of thought was making connections from what I heard in Shalom and what I've heard locally, which I love.
Yeah, I love that too. Should we do one of the videos as an example?
Yeah, and let me now preface what happened after they did this. So they did research in 4 countries in 3 continents where they did a very extensive process to test this methodology. So the questions, the assessment, they want to make it available not only to Opportunity International, but to others. So you can actually find the questions, you can find the assessment on, I can give you a web link, and you can actually see them. So they could be used in other settings, and they can do training. The hope of Genzo, who is the education director, and he is a researcher, he says, I want to see any organization who does holistic service have more tools to know what their clients need. So it's not just something they're keeping internally, but they want to share with others. So the videos that you're going to see, so after they did this process, they really found that these areas had so many commonalities that they said our next evolution for Opportunity International was to be able to offer more education to our clients, because that's what they do. They do financial education. But they said people needed much more. They didn't need just financial, they needed in the other realms. So out of their learning from this work with their research, they developed a curriculum that has 6 modules and 24 lessons. So the 6 modules kind of go along these areas of shalom. They have one that's a foundation, like foundational principles like hope and things, dignity. And then they had the relationship with God, with family, with self, with community, and with their environment. And out of each of those, then they had lessons. So it ended up to be a curriculum with 24 lessons. But then what they did is said it has to be in context of what we learned. So they took what they learned in Colombia and the issues people were having, and they captured and used those stories for the curriculum. So in the terms of Colombia, there are 2 videos we'll show. They're in Spanish with subtitles, you'll have to do a little reading. But what they're doing is, this would be an example of something they might do with a group of people. So it could be done, maybe the church wants to do it. It could be done in their savings and loans groups. So they have different ways to use the curriculum. Some will show a video, then there's discussion questions, there's activities around it. Others use non-video, like flip charts or handouts or games or activities to teach the concept. But it gives you the idea of, they're not just finding out what the issues are, but they said we now have to help people address them and listen to what they said and now give them some tools. So we'll use one of the videos. If you have the Hope video, why don't we put that one on? And so watch this, and then we'll get some reaction.
Then let's talk about what you see in the video and what the issue is with the people, and get some discussion going.
Mi nombre es Joana Hernández. Tengo una niña muy hermosa, tiene 3 años. Tengo 2 años y 3 meses aproximadamente que llegué de Maracaibo, Estado Zulia, y vivo aquí en Barranquilla, en una invasión que se llama Villa Caracas. Ahorita mi país está pasando por una crisis muy fuerte. Ya el bolívar ya está devaluado, ya no vale nada. Si una harina vale, por decir aquí, 1.000 pesos, ya mañana ya no vale 1.000 pesos, sino 2.000 y hasta 2.500 pesos. Yo antes de venir me compraba 5 harinas, 5 arroz y, por decir, 1 kilo de queso. La carne no la podía comprar. Cuando desayunaba no podía almorzar, o cuando almorzaba no podía desayunar. Fue algo tremendo. Yo pesaba alrededor de 35 kilos. Los pantalones ya no me quedaban. Yo pensaba, Dios mío, ¿qué está pasando? ¿Por qué está esto así? Dejar su país, dejar su cultura, no es fácil. Fue una decisión que estaba como que entre la espada y la pared. Tenía que decidir o quedarme o venirme para acá y brindarle a mi hija un mejor futuro. Al momento de venirme para acá, fue de noche. Eso de 12 de la noche arrancamos, estuvimos toda la madrugada viajando. Nunca había visto que pidieran tanta plata por todo. O sea, en cada esquina pedían plata. Y vi mucha gente migrando y caminando. Y niños, o sea, madres con niños pequeños, o sea, eso es triste. Llegamos aquí, o sea, sin nada, a comenzar de cero. Empecé vendiendo dulces por las calles. Aguanté mucho sol. Yo pensaba, yo tengo que ser alguien. Yo tengo que ser alguien. Y aquí estoy, en un país donde no es mi país, pero que gracias a Dios me brindó las puertas para poder seguir adelante. Mi casa es un rancho de tabla. Vivo con mi mamá y mi papá. Nada más hay un solo cuarto, una sola división. Está una pequeña salita que se divide en la cocina y la sala. El piso sí se ha agrietado, todo se ha partido debido al deslizamiento. Gracias a Dios, mi papá hizo otro cuarto en lo que era el porche. Pero bueno, estamos ahora más cómodos y me siento como que diferente. En Villa Caracas hay de todo un poquito. Hay muchos niños, niños bellos, que sus padres quieren lo mejor para ellos, para su estudio, para su futuro. Hay muchos jóvenes y adolescentes con sueños de ser periodistas, de ser abogados, con sueños de ser cantantes. A mí me gusta mucho trabajar en comunidad y viendo la necesidad de cada persona. Ahorita estamos porque queremos el agua, porque no es una urbanización, eso es una invasión. La luz, ahorita estamos porque queremos unos buenos transformadores, se está luchando para eso. Y el gas, que son los 3 factores indispensables que hace falta en una comunidad. Me siento muy bien allá en la comunidad brindándoles el servicio y me queda como que la satisfacción linda de que, wow, se logró el objetivo. Tenemos que ser luz, ¿verdad? E impactar. Yo tengo que ser el ejemplo. Todos por allí vieron cómo empecé, vendiendo mis dulces, vendiendo mis postres, vendiendo helados. Y les he dicho que no están solos, primero tienen la ayuda de Dios, que eso es lo primordial. No mirando atrás, es enfocarse en lo que ellos quieren y siempre pensar positivo, pensar que sí lo puedes hacer. Creer en ti mismo, creer en esa esperanza y nunca perder la fe. Quiero darle como que un futuro mejor a mi hija, una mejor calidad de vida. Ella quiere una casa. Ella dice que ella no quiere vivir en un rancho. Yo le voy a dar una casa. Voy a obtener mi casa. Voy a luchar y seguiré luchando. Cree en ti mismo. Y no pierdas la esperanza. Jamás. Jamás.
You can end it now with the credits.
Pretty touching. It's that transformation that Adam was talking about. You know? touched.
Yeah, I think it's easy to sometimes look at people and go, oh, those poor people, I feel so bad for them. And just, what can I give to them? But as Melanie is telling us, that is not the solution to the problem. It's inside, right? And so the hopelessness and I don't know, has anyone ever been humiliated? I mean, and where that takes you without some encouragement. I mean, a best friend, somebody to go to. And so what you have are people living in that same situation who probably feel the same way.
In this case, this is being used in the foundation or video about instilling hope. And so some of the questions the people in the class would be talking about is, what gave her the courage to keep going? What gave her hope? What strength is she finding to make a change in her life? So we as a group can see an image of hope and say, maybe I could have hope too. Because again, it's not that people don't need physical resources. They do. They need those. But they have to have the hope and that faith and that belief in self in order to take those resources and move their lives in the right direction. The resources alone are not enough, because when they run out, then the person is still in desperate straits. And this story, one of the things I like about Opportunity International's methods is they find a person of light. She was a person of light in her community. They get her into, their programs, and then they take those people that are the shining examples of light, and they go out and help their neighbors. So they end up employing the very people who are in the neighborhood. They don't bring in people from the outside. So my guess is she became an opportunity person who's now starting other groups. Because she said, they see me. I started selling sweets. I was a refugee from Venezuela. I had nothing. And now I'm here changing my community. So that, we all need an example, right? We need to look up to someone who's made it or is on the journey. And she still lives in a shack, and she still has hopes and dreams. But she has that kind of inner strength that, boy, I think we all could benefit from having that strength. Other thoughts when you hear this? So when you hear about, like I said, the curriculum, they're going to be having this kind of dialogue in a small group on these different topics and helping people have that support network. Because if none of us have a support network, how are we going to, be able to have shalom even in our own lives and then be able to be that light? I love how the sermon was a perfect fit for our topic today, because then how do we go out and be the light to others? And sometimes I think being the light helps us backwards be in shalom. Because we can't think, oh, I'm going to get myself perfect and then I can help other people, because guess what? We're not going to get there. There are many areas, and depending on the day or the week or the year, that our lives are out of balance and out of shalom. But sometimes focusing on someone else, when I go to places like this and I meet people like this, I get better. And I say, oh, that strengthens my faith, that strengthens my resolve, that strengthens my ability to do something in the world and in my own life. So I think we can learn a lot by listening and seeing the example of the people we serve, because it makes our lives better. So this church does a wonderful job of not having this just handout mentality. Oh, those poor people, let's just give them something. Because I think it's very demeaning. We all want dignity in our life. We all want to work. We all want to have, we want to improve our own lives. But to have that dignity, we have to, we do need some support, but we need it in a way that that lifts us up. Pastor Ann wants to
I
say something.
I just have a comment, Melanie. It's, going to these places, I think the heart of this congregation is so generous. And when we physically go, we actually live into that community that Jesus has united us in, right? The body of Christ, and we get to be physically present with others who we wouldn't see here. I just think it's a wonderful way to live into who God created us to be.
And what I would say is that place is in many places. For me, I was in Columbia. I feel that way in North Minneapolis when I go and I do the work I've been doing with Salem. So it doesn't have to be, we're all different, and some people can go far and some people can't. But I do challenge all of us to say, how can our lives be more in shalom, and how can we be the light in all the communities we show up in? And we are a generous congregation and generous people, but I think we've only hit the tip of the iceberg about what we could do and the difference we could make in our local and our global community.
Thank you so much. I have been reminded recently, working at a college, the COVID really accelerated the mental health crisis in junior high kids and high school kids and college kids. And they're going to, we're realizing, like Gustavus says, they're going to take that with them unless there is something that is transformational. And one of the things we're talking about is it is just saying, good morning, Lyle. How are you today? How's it going, Lyle? Like talking to them, looking, like giving them attention. And it's not forced on, it's just like the little things. I didn't see you yesterday. Are you doing okay? It's like that small sometimes that I see you.
Absolutely.
So it just reminds me, I maybe can't go to Colombia right now, but I can do it sitting in a church pew or on Sunday morning in the foyer. Right?
Yeah, you hear even on the news that, the epidemic of loneliness. We are more connected than we've ever been with our phones and everything else, but sometimes we're more lonely than we've ever been. And so when you think about that being rampant with our youth and with people in our own lives, and then you look, okay, do that, leave your country, leave everything, and have nothing. And you've got both of those going on. So these issues of mental health and of struggle, they cross cultures. They're not just for the poor, they're for us as well. But I do think it gives us the push that we need to reach out in whatever settings we're in and be that light and support organizations that are trying to do it in places we can't go so that we really can be that light. But those are some of the insights really that the people in poverty, they're facing obstacles much more than just lack of resources. And it's really hope, and it's having the image of what my life could be, that we do have these commonalities across cultures, that we need people to deeply listen to us, and we need to be deep listeners to other people. And we need to not only learn, but to hope and dream and to help other people have hopes and dreams, because that's when things get pretty dark, is when people lose hope and people lose dreams and people don't see them. I love that, Kathy, because I think a lot of youth don't feel seen or don't feel important in their lives, and that we, in everything we do in our church and our lives, let's try to be people-centered and ask what people need, and not be thinking that we know all the answers.
Should we have one more video, and then maybe we talk about application?
So this particular video touches on mental health. And so this is one of those that would be the relationship with self and how you keep your self healthy. So we can show that video. Chuck?
I was just thinking, this is the same message that we had from our previous Jim Bear. We asked, what can we do? He said, listen.
Listen.
Mi nombre es Rebeca Guzmán López, soy originaria de esta comunidad de Majosic. Vivo en una familia pues que está separada. Mi papá hizo una cosa que tal vez no debía. De repente se fue a perderse, a emborracharse, se metió con otras mujeres aparte de su familia que ya tiene ahora. Entonces eso fue lo que nos afectó bastante. En esos años pues mi familia se deshizo prácticamente. Yo tenía como 15 o 16. Me enfermé, no tenía ganas de hacer nada. Se siente uno sin fuerzas, sin ganas de seguir con la vida. Hubo un tiempo en que dije, Dios no existe, porque permitió que pasara esto. Como 5 o 6 años creo que salimos de la iglesia. Ya después nos vino a visitar un pastor y él nos llegaba a visitar, a animar y así empezamos a ir de nuevo en la iglesia. Yo lo que hice era orar, pedir la dirección de Dios. ¿Qué puedo hacer? Ahorita solo me estoy dedicando con misión integral, en acompañar a los grupos de ahorro. A veces igual en los grupos donde voy, algunos hermanos dicen, ora por mi familia. Pues a veces voy en las familias. Tengo esa costumbre de ir, de orar por alguien. A veces me preguntan, ¿qué ha hecho Dios en mi vida? ¿Cómo le haces que no te pones triste o algo así? Me dicen, siempre estás alegre. Sí, me sigue gustando hasta ahorita el deporte. Eso es lo que a mí me ha gustado y entonces me gusta mucho compartir eso con otras personas para que igual todo lo que pases, todo lo que vivas, no quede en la mente, porque a veces pasa de que queda y nunca sale. Te olvidas de un rato, no sé, de los trabajos, de los quehaceres de la casa. Y cuando no ya de noche o más tarde, después de todas las actividades, lo que a mí me encanta y lo sigo haciendo hasta ahora es escuchar música, leer algunos libros. Siento que la música me tranquiliza porque te despeja la mente. También cuando yo escucho música instrumental, pues ahí a veces ando haciendo mis quehaceres también. Yo creo que eso sería una forma de cómo cuidar la salud mental. Venid, ved las obras de Jehová, que ha puesto asolamiento en la tierra, que hace cesar las guerras. La parte fundamental de cuidar la espiritualidad es estar en comunión más con Dios cuando realmente sientes que ya no puedes. Le cuento a Dios todo lo que me pasa, qué planes tengo, cómo puedo llevar a cabo esos planes que tengo. Y también más que nada pedir la fortaleza espiritual, porque en la vida enfrentas muchas cosas que te pueden llevar del otro lado. A veces pensamos que la vida de otros es realmente maravilloso cuando no. Cada persona tiene cosas o tiene dificultades o problemas de lo que está pasando, aunque se están cayendo por pedazos, pero no lo demuestra. Por eso Yo siempre digo, distráiganse, no todo el tiempo tiene que ser trabajo y no separarte más de Dios cuando tú necesitas la ayuda de Él. Me siento feliz. ¿Por qué? Porque Dios, a pesar de todas las cosas que he vivido, Dios me sigue regalando vida y siento que aunque en la vida me pasen mil cosas, yo sé que Dios va a estar conmigo. Pase lo que pase, Él va a estar.
Thank you. So again, as you can see, if we were watching this video as a group, she's talking about, mental health, and she's talking about things, very tangible things she does, like sports and music and prayer and reading, just things that remind people, oh, there are things I could do to feel better. So it's just an example of how when the training curriculum was developed, they're trying to give people things, things that they could possibly do in their own lives.
She was a smart cookie. She had application, for all of us. I mean, she sees people, and she's a light.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Any thoughts or last questions that people have, or just kind of winding up? You all have lots of places to be today. But I want to thank you for letting me share with you some more about Shalom. I do want to give you a website that you can see more of the videos, you can see the intro video, and if you're really a data wonk, I'm looking at Kathy, you can find the whole assessment process. But it's opportunity.org, and then it's /holistic assessment. So I do encourage you to look at it. There are other videos that talk about what is an example of relationship to God or relationship to environment, and they use those when they train the interviewers who go out and say, what do I mean I'm asking about relationship with self? What does that mean? So there's videos about that, and there's, I believe, an introductory video in the whole process. And then if you keep assessment itself, and again, for those who'd like to see more or may have an application that they think I'd like to use this kind of tool, that resource is there. But are there other questions or comments? I will. So it's opportunity.org /holistic assessment. And that will take you to just more information about this process.
So just thinking locally too, I think, and Mike would know a couple of those that volunteer at Interfaith. I think of the work and the changes that Interfaith is going through currently, Interfaith Outreach, is they are asking clients more, and Chuck, you could speak more to this, but they're changing their staffing, but they're asking clients more questions rather than making assumptions. And so changing some of their processes and realizing what they need to do some things differently to better meet the needs and not separate but integrate people too. So I don't know, they're going through that same process, I think.
Yeah, and they might be very interested to see some of this, because it would be very applicable in other settings. And it is the goal of Opportunity International to share this research that they did. And obviously the two videos I just showed you are ones from their curriculum they're using in Latin America. They have similar curriculum like this that is specific to countries in Africa and other places. But they certainly want the general tools and this type of deep listening, holistic, client-centered work to be shared among anyone who would like to use the tool.
Yeah, and I think the question that you gave me, Melanie, which is, what is something that's happened in your life? can be such a good question because it's open-ended and it forces you to think about, well, I might say, well, I moved, and you might say, well, that's fabulous. But somebody said to me, you know, you must have a lot of grief, like after leaving your home. And to me, that was so insightful because I was feeling down, I wasn't sure what it was, and just having somebody say that to me, which we can do for each other, was very helpful. So we are the light. Each of us here is the light. I don't think we would be here listening if we weren't. And we have opportunities every day. So thank you for coming. Thank you for Melanie for sharing this. And Kirk has a comment.
There's a dash between holistic and assessment.
Yes, thank you.
So
But Google's pretty smart. Even when I don't put the dash, it pops up. But yes, it's nice to be able to just see more of the work, and I just encourage you to take a look at some of that other material. And I find it always makes my faith, my knowledge, my curiosity about the world grow when I look at the good work that's going on out there and learn. I'm a voracious learner, and so thank you for spending a little time and being on this journey.